Have you ever felt like the universe is working against you? Get ready, because what you are about to hear is not just another tale. It's a divine revelation that will shake the very foundations of your life. Pay close attention, because today's story isn't something you can simply overlook. By clicking on this video, you're about to uncover something profound and divine. I assure you that what happened to the protagonist in this story carries a direct message for your current situation and answers you've long been seeking. You should know that the Lord is sending you direct messages through these videos, and only you can interpret what they mean for your life. It's not by chance that these videos appear to you, nor is it mere coincidence that you've clicked on this one. Comment now. My light does not dim. My destiny is divine. This comment will be your declaration of faith, your pledge that you are ready to receive the word that will transform your life. Prepare for a story that will demonstrate how God turns the envy of others into your greatest blessing. A woman who faced the darkness of slander and emerged more brilliant than ever. In a small town where the streets were narrow and gossip slithered like serpents among the stones, there lived a woman named Sephora. From her childhood, Sephora had a special glow. It wasn't her physical beauty, although she was indeed lovely. It was something deeper, more heavenly. It was her inner light, a peace and joy that couldn't be explained, as if her soul was touched by God's own hand. While others were busy accumulating wealth or adorning themselves with worldly valuables, Sephora walked barefoot through the fields, her heart full of gratitude. Her eyes gazed at the heavens with devotion, and her voice sang hymns at dawn. She needed no ornaments or flattery because she knew her worth came from the Lord, and that precisely ignited envy in those who couldn't grasp her secret. The women of the town, who spent hours perfecting their appearance, began to notice Sephora. Initially, they watched her silently, intrigued, but over time their gazes darkened, and their words became poisonous. "Why her?" they whispered. "What does she have that we don't? If she's poor, if she lacks jewels, why does she carry herself with such assurance? Why does her life seem so blessed?" Rumors began to spread. The women accused her of things she never did, pointed at her with disdain, and shut their doors when she needed help. One by one, those who once welcomed her with smiles now turned their backs. But Sephora stood firm. Every day she took her jug, walked to the well, and while filling her calloused hands with water, she prayed, "Lord, protect my heart from bitterness. Teach me to respond with love to those who persecute me. If my light comes from you, let no one extinguish it." Yet envy is like the wind. It blows fiercely and seeks to knock down anything in its path. One afternoon, the town's most influential women decided to take action. They gathered and devised a cruel plan. They would tarnish Sephora's name forever. They would tell the old town judge that she had stolen, that she used enchantments to shine more than others, that she wasn't as she appeared. The news spread like wildfire, and the next morning, Sephora was dragged to the main square. People crowded around, shouting and pointing. No one listened when she tried to speak. No one saw her tears when they demanded she confess to something she hadn't done. Only slander prevailed in that place. And at that moment, under the weight of the stares and the noise of accusations, Sephora's heart quietly broke. But while everyone judged her, God was at work in heaven. What seemed like the end for Sephora was actually the perfect stage the Lord was setting. While people thought they had won, God had already written the next chapter of her story. Suddenly, an old man unseen before appeared in the crowd. His presence silenced the uproar. His eyes were wise, and his voice carried the authority of one who speaks the truth. He was a messenger from God, though no one knew it. He looked at Sephora and then spoke firmly. "Why do you accuse this woman without evidence? Why are your hearts filled with venom while she shines with the light of innocence. Let the one who is free of envy and sin take the next step. The silence was deafening. One by one, the women lowered their eyes. That voice had exposed what none wanted to admit: the darkness in their own hearts. They realized that the problem wasn't Sephora, but the envy consuming them inside. In the end, no one could lift a stone against her. No one could accuse her again. Sephora was freed, but something had changed. From that day on, the same women who once pursued her began to seek her out. They wanted to know where her peace came from. They wanted to understand why, despite everything done against her, she continued to shine. And then Sephora told them calmly and lovingly, "My light is not mine. It is the reflection of the God who lives in me. Human envy can never extinguish what the Lord has ignited." The women who had once been her enemies became her friends. They sat by her side, listened to her prayers, and learned to look to the heavens with the same hope she had. Sephora understood something profound. The toughest battles are won when we let God fight for us. Trials are not meant to destroy us, but to refine us, like fire refines gold. Others' envy has no power against God's purpose in our lives, because, as Proverbs 16:7 says, "When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him." Sephora's story teaches us that when we remain faithful, when we respond to hate with love and lies with truth, God fights our battles. People may try to dim our light, but what God has placed in our hearts cannot be destroyed. Sephora's story isn't just a distant tale. It's a mirror for many of us. Perhaps you right now feel like her, judged, criticized, surrounded by people who can't stand the light God has placed in you. Maybe you've encountered envy disguised as kindness, or betrayal masked as friendship. You felt surrounded by judging eyes, whispering voices, and the weight of undeserved accusations. But let me tell you this: if you are here today, listening to this message, it is not by chance. This is for you. Have you ever wondered why people react this way to your life? Why does it seem that the more you progress, the more adversaries appear? It's because God's light in you makes those who don't understand it uncomfortable. Light always unsettles those who prefer darkness. Your joy, peace, and faith are reminders to others of what is missing in their hearts. It's easier to attack, criticize, or envy you than to confront what they need to change themselves. But hear this: human envy cannot stop what God has declared over you. Think for a moment about Joseph, Jacob's son. Joseph had a dream, a divine calling that God had revealed to him, but that dream sparked envy among his brothers. Why him? They wondered. Who does he think he is to dream so big? Envy blinded them to the point of selling him into slavery, thinking it would extinguish his destiny. But God was with Joseph. In slavery, in prison, and through every trial, God continued to work. Those who rejected and betrayed him were the same ones who years later saw him rise as governor of Egypt. God used every attack, every slander, and every moment of suffering as preparation for his purpose. And he will do the same with you. Maybe today you feel like Joseph, abandoned in a pit or trapped in a prison of words and unjust situations. Perhaps you feel that those you loved most have turned their backs on you, or that the people who should support you are the very ones trying to bring you down. But I want you to listen carefully. What people plan for harm, God transforms into good. What hurts you today will become the testimony that glorifies the Lord's name in your life tomorrow. God did not bring you this far to leave you in the middle of the process. Your story does not end in rejection, slander, or pain. The journey may be tough indeed, but it's essential. It is in this period of trial that God is making you stronger. He is removing what you don't need, refining your character, and teaching you to rely solely on Him. What others have tried to use to break you, God is using to lift you up. Consider this. If envy and opposition have appeared in your life, it's because the enemy recognizes the purpose God has instilled in you. The enemy doesn't bother with those who are lost. He targets those with a calling, those who carry something valuable within. So every challenge, every critique, and every attack are indicators that you're on the right path. If God didn't have something significant for you, the enemy wouldn't be so intent on bringing you down. Now, ask yourself, will you allow others' envy to dim your light, or will you choose to rise, walk in faith, and let God use your journey for His glory? Here's the truth. The light within you doesn't originate from you. It comes from God. And what God has ignited, no one can extinguish. Isaiah 61 encourages us, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." This message is for you. It's a command, not a suggestion. Rise and shine, because the light God has placed within you cannot be overshadowed by human opinions. Declare this with faith right now. Write it in the comments. No one can extinguish the light God has placed in me. Write it with conviction, because by doing so, you're proclaiming that you are not defined by what others say, but by what God has declared over you. This declaration is an act of spiritual warfare because the enemy wants to see you silent and defeated. But every time you assert your faith, you are progressing, engaging in battle, and allowing God's light to shine even brighter in you. Remember something crucial. The experiences you go through are not meant to destroy you. They are meant to prepare you. Don't focus on who envies you, who criticizes you, or who attempts to harm you. Focus on what God is doing within you through all of this, because when the time comes, those who criticize you today will witness how God lifts and honors you. Psalm 23:5 tells us, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." This means that God will not only restore you, but do so in front of those who sought to destroy you. This is your time to trust, persevere, and keep your eyes fixed on the Lord. Don't let the world's noise make you forget who you are. You are a child of God. You are a light in the darkness. You are the salt that flavors the earth. And the Lord has great plans for your life. If you feel that this message has touched your heart today, don't ignore it. This is no coincidence. It's a divine reminder that God is with you and the best is yet to come. God has called you, chosen you, and He will not allow anything or anyone to extinguish your light. Just as Sephora shone amidst envy and Joseph was exalted amidst betrayal, you too will be lifted up. So rise, trust, and continue forward, because God never fails, and His purpose in you will be fulfilled. One of the most profound and heartbreaking aspects of Sephora's story was not just the envy people felt towards her, but the way they tried to destroy what they couldn't understand. How many times in your life have you found yourself surrounded by people who, instead of celebrating your progress or blessings, seek to dim your light, belittle you, and discredit you? It's as if the light God has placed in you exposes the shadows others carry within, and instead of approaching the light, they try to snuff it out. This is where we must remember something fundamental. Envy is really just a silent confession of admiration disguised as hatred. The people who criticize you, try to stop you or slander you do so because there's something in you they can't ignore, something that challenges and unsettles them. But listen carefully. What unsettles them isn't your appearance, your talent, or your possessions. It's the glow of God's presence in your life, the peace with which you walk, the hope you maintain even when everything seems lost, the faith that stands firm even amidst storms. When Sephora was dragged to the center of the square, surrounded by accusations and venomous stares, she could have shouted, could have tried to defend herself with human words. But she remained silent and let God speak for her. This is crucial because often, when we find ourselves in similar situations, we want to react with our strength. We want to respond, prove we're right. But God says, wait on me, I will fight. For you, this reminds me of what it says in Exodus 14:14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Can you feel the power in those words? Sometimes silence is not weakness. It's the greatest demonstration of faith, telling the world and your enemies, I don't need to defend myself because my God is my defender. When you remain silent and hand your battles to the Lord, you're giving him space to act. And believe me, God always acts with justice and power. Think of Jesus. When he was brought before Pilate falsely accused, he also remained silent. Despite being the King of Kings, he didn't shout, didn't defend himself. He knew his purpose was much greater than human accusations. His silence was a demonstration of his total trust in the Father's plan. Similarly, when you face rejection, criticism, and slander, remember that God knows the truth, and in his time, the truth will come to light. Perhaps you felt like Sephora. Maybe you've been betrayed by those you trusted most. You've worked hard, done everything with love and excellence, and instead of receiving support, you've faced envy and disdain. Perhaps your own family, friends, or colleagues have tried to overshadow what God is doing in you. But let me remind you, human rejection can never thwart God's purpose. Others' slander holds no power over you because what God has decided to do in your life cannot be stopped. In Isaiah 54:17, the Bible says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their vindication is from me, declares the Lord. Every accusation, every criticism, every lie launched against you will fall to the ground harmless because God is on your side. You might feel today that others' words are destroying you inside, but hear this. God is using even those words to build something new in you. Rejection doesn't mean God has forgotten you. It means he is protecting, preparing, and positioning you for something greater. Joseph had to be rejected by his brothers to reach Egypt. David had to be overlooked by his own family before being anointed king. Even Jesus was rejected and crucified before bringing salvation to the world. Why do you think your story would be different? God allows rejection not to destroy you, but to exalt you at the right time. So I tell you today, let God take control of your battle. Don't lose your peace trying to defend yourself or explain your truth to those who don't want to hear it. Keep your eyes on the Lord and remember that human opinion will never be more powerful than God's purpose in your life. His plan is still in motion, and the trials you face today are merely preparation for the blessing that is coming tomorrow. I want you to take a moment and think, what will you do with the rejection you're facing? Will you use it as an excuse to give up, or will you let it be the platform from which God lifts you? Because let me tell you something, God doesn't call those the world approves. He approves those he has called. And if he has called you, if he has chosen you, no one can stop you. Write this now in the comments as a declaration of faith. Human rejection leads me to God's purpose. Write it with conviction. Because when you do, you're declaring that you believe in the divine plan for your life. You are saying that you are not defined by what others think of you, but by what God says you are. A beloved child, a chosen one, someone with an eternal purpose. Trust in the Lord, even in this difficult moment. Don't focus on those who criticize you. Focus on the one who called you. God is with you, and even if the world rejects you, his love and favor over you will never fail. When we hear Sephora's story, we see a reflection of what many are experiencing today. You might not face public humiliation, but perhaps you're experiencing rejection at work, at home, or even among those who claim to be your friends. Sometimes it's not the words that hurt the most, but the looks, the silence of those who should support you, and the lack of acknowledgement for your hard work. It's as if the entire world conspires to make you feel small, unworthy, and unnecessary. But let me tell you, if you feel this way today, surrounded by envy or indifference, God is about to show you that your life has an unbreakable purpose. You are not alone in this struggle. If you're here listening to these words, it's because there's a flame within you that hasn't been extinguished. There's a spark, a light that persists despite the challenges. Do you know what this means? It signifies that the Holy Spirit is empowering you, that your heart is open to what God wants to accomplish in your life. And this, my brother or sister, is extraordinary in today's world. We live in times filled with distractions. The noise of the world tries to fill every corner of our minds, stealing our peace, time, and focus. But you, by being here, have chosen to listen to God's voice. While many are lost in consuming empty things, you have decided to nourish your spirit. This choice speaks volumes about who you are. Consider this. In a world where social media promotes envy, comparison, and superficiality, you have chosen to stay here, being built up, renewed, and strengthened. You've chosen to let this message transform your life. That, my dear brother, my dear sister, is an act of courage. In times when everything pushes people toward darkness, you seek light. And believe me, God sees your effort. You didn't arrive here by accident. Do you understand? Listen to this with your heart. God brought you here because He wants to lift you up. It doesn't matter how many times you've been ignored or slandered, or how many have tried to take your place. They do not have the final say. The Lord holds the final word, and He declares that you are His child and that His purpose for you will not be stopped. Zephorah's story leaves us with an eternal lesson. The light that comes from God cannot be extinguished. Today, I want to speak directly to you, who may feel invisible and unrecognized for your efforts. Let me assure you that God sees every tear, every silent prayer, and every act of kindness, even if no one else notices. The world may not recognize you, but heaven does. Jesus told us in Matthew 5:14-16, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Do you understand the depth of this message? You were not created to hide or dim your light. You were created to shine, not by your strength, but because God's presence dwells within you. When people envy you, it's not because of what you possess or achieve, but because your life reflects something they don't understand. You reflect God's presence, and that light, my brother, my sister, is powerful. That's why the enemy will try all means to extinguish it. He will use hurtful words, rejection, indifference, and betrayal. But hold on to this truth. No attack from the enemy can dim what God has placed in you. Now I ask you, will you continue to shine? Will you keep walking in faith even if the world tries to stop you? The fact that you're here, listening to this word, is proof that you are called to something greater. Instead of seeking worldly content that only feeds emptiness, you have chosen to be here, receiving God's living word. And I assure you, this kind of decision has an eternal impact. Today, I want you to declare something with faith, something that marks a turning point in your life. Write in the comments, "My light comes from God, and no one can extinguish it." By doing so, you're not only declaring your faith, but also inspiring others. You are part of something bigger. Every time you share your testimony, every time you proclaim your faith, you are lighting up dark places. The enemy wants you to give, up to hide, to dim your light for fear of rejection. But you are not one to retreat. You are a warrior in God's hands. Your life has a purpose, and every battle you face is preparing you for something greater. Just as Sephora faced envy and slander and emerged stronger, used by God, you too will be exalted in the Lord's perfect time. If today you feel tired, If you feel the trials are too many, remember what Galatians 6:9 says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." Your faithfulness will be rewarded, your prayers will be answered, and God is working even when you don't see it. Stand firm. Do not let the world's darkness dim your light. Stay here, building your spirit, growing in faith, and remembering that God fights for you. This channel, this message did not come into your life by chance. God is using it to strengthen you, to speak to you, and to remind you that you are not alone. Now take a deep breath and repeat in your heart, "God is with me, and my light will not go out, because the battle is already won, and my victory is secure in the hands of our God." When we consider Sephora's story and the envy she faced, there's a powerful verse that resonates deeply, and I want you to keep it in your spirit. It's found in Psalm 37, 7-9, and says, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. Refrain from anger and turn from wrath. Do not fret, it leads only to evil. For those who are evil will be destroyed, but those who hope in the Lord will inherit the land." Here, we find a truth we need to remember. When surrounded by envy, criticism, and others' ill intentions, do not lose your peace. Do not waste your energy responding, because God will fight for you. How many times have you felt that the unjust prosper while you struggle? How many times have you been tempted to respond, defend yourself, or justify yourself to those who envy and slander you? But the Word teaches us that the best defense is to trust in the Lord. Sephora didn't waste time fighting against those who tried to dim her light. She remained silent and let God bring justice in His time. Brother, sister, let me tell you something. With all my heart, it is not your task to fight against human envy. It is your task to keep shining, to keep trusting, and to let God handle the rest. Rejection, criticism, and ill intentions are tools the enemy uses to distract you from your purpose. They are traps meant to rob you of joy, peace, and focus. But listen to this. If the enemy is attacking you so fiercely, it's because he sees what God is doing in your life. He sees the potential, the light, and the purpose you carry within. If you had nothing valuable, no one would attack you. But because you carry God's light, you are a target for darkness. Always remember this: what the enemy tries to use to destroy you, God will use to lift you up. When Joseph was betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery, it seemed everything was over for him. It seemed his dreams had died. But in Genesis 50:20, when everything had been revealed, Joseph said to his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Look deeply into this word. What others plan for evil, God turns to good. What others try to use to stop you, God uses to take you further. That same promise is for you today. Every attack, every criticism, every envy you have endured, God is using to prepare you, strengthen you, and position you where He has reserved for you. You must understand something. The purpose God has for your life does not depend on human approval. No matter how many try to discredit you, no matter who speaks ill of you, God's hand remains upon your life. The Bible says in Romans 8:31, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" This is not just a beautiful phrase, it is a spiritual truth you must remember in every battle. If God is with you, no one can stop you. If He has said He will lift you up, there is no power that can prevent it. Sometimes, in the midst of trials, we can feel alone and think that God is silent or not acting. But I want to remind you what it says in Deuteronomy 31:6. "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you." He will never abandon you or leave you alone. God's promise is unwavering. Even when people turn away from you, even when you feel like you're walking this path solo, God is right there with you, guiding you and fighting on your behalf. I want to directly address you now, especially if you find yourself in a situation similar to Sephora's. Maybe you're dealing with envy at your job, in your home, or even among your close friends. Perhaps you felt unjustly targeted, as if others are trying to dim your light or belittle your efforts. But listen closely. God sees everything you're going through. He knows every word spoken against you, and He will not let those words defeat you. His plan is steadfast, and His justice will prevail at the perfect time. Remember this: the jealousy of others cannot stop God's blessings. Don't let criticism make you doubt your worth. You are a child of God, and His favor rests upon you. What others think or say does not determine your value or destiny. Your identity is in Christ, and His word is the only authority over your life. So today I invite you to declare with faith, God's plan for my life will prevail, even if the world rejects me. Write it in the comments now, because this declaration will not only strengthen your spirit, but also serve as a testimony to others. It's an act of spiritual warfare, a declaration of faith that says, I will not give up, I will not let my light dim, I will keep moving forward because my God is faithful. I want you to remember something else. If you're here today listening to these words, it's not by chance. This message is meant for you. In a world full of distractions where many seek to fill the void with worldly things, you have chosen to nurture your spirit. You've decided to stay here receiving the word of God and allowing Him to work in your heart. This sets you apart. This makes you special. The enemy would love nothing more than for you to give up, to stop fighting, to hide away. But God has called you for greater things. You have been chosen, set apart, and your story is far from over. If you feel this message has touched your heart today, if you sense God is speaking to you, don't ignore this moment. Let this word take root within you, allowing the Lord to work His wonders. Even if the world envies you, even if they try to extinguish your light, the brilliance of God in you is unbreakable, eternal, and victorious. If you've come this far, let me tell you something important. You're not just anyone. You didn't stumble upon this message by accident. It was God who led you here because He has a specific purpose for you. You are a spiritual warrior, someone who doesn't surrender, someone who continues to fight against all odds, and that's a rare quality. Congratulations on another day of faith for reaching the end of this message that not only builds you up, but transforms you. Not everyone can do this. In a world that constantly tries to distract and mislead you, you've remained here, steadfast, listening to what God has for you. This shows who you are, a chosen one, someone God has set apart for such a time as this. Consider this. How many people today go through their days without feeding their spirit? While the world is engrossed in vanities, while others waste time on things that don't build up, you have chosen to stay here, allowing the Lord to plant seeds of life in your heart. This is no small feat. The decision you made today, perhaps, without fully realizing it, is making a difference in your life and in those around you. Because when you strengthen yourself spiritually, your environment transforms as well. This channel is not just another space, it's a refuge, a tool God has placed in your life to support you in your spiritual journey. Here, you are not alone. Here, we are a family of warriors who refuse to give up. From this moment forward, we are in this battle together. Every word you receive here will be your shield, every reflection a sword, and every prayer a cry of victory. Take a moment and boldly declare something. Write in the comments, I am a warrior of God, and my light will not go out. Do it with faith, because by writing it, you confirm your commitment not just to me or this channel, but to your own spiritual life. You are telling the world and the enemy that you will not give up, that you are still standing, moving forward, because God is with you. This comment is not just for you. It is also a testimony for others who will read it and be inspired to continue. Now listen, it doesn't matter if you are fully focused on these words or if you're listening while working, resting, or doing other tasks. The important thing is that this word, like a seed, is reaching your mind and spirit. Even if you're not consciously aware, your subconscious is absorbing these truths and being renewed. This is how God works, silently but powerfully. Do not underestimate the impact of being here, allowing God to work within you. If you haven't done so yet, check if you're subscribed to this channel. It might seem like a small gesture, but it isn't. Subscribing is a declaration that you are committed to your spiritual growth. It's a way of saying, Lord, I am ready to receive more from you. I am ready to walk with you every day. Moreover, you are not alone in this. There are many of us here, and each one of us is important in this community that God is forming. You are part of something big, something the Lord is using to change lives. Brother, sister, there is another message waiting for you on this channel. I don't know what it is, but God does. He will stir you, guide you to the next video you need to hear, because the Lord never stops speaking to his children. He always has more to teach us, more to strengthen us with, so I invite you to look for that video. Trust that there is a specific word for you that will take your faith to the next level. Before we close, I want to thank you and thank God. Thank you for making it this far, for being the kind of person who doesn't settle, who seeks more of God. Thank you because by being here, you allow this word to transform you and also inspire others. You are an instrument in God's hands, and your life has a greater purpose than you can see today. And thank God, because he makes no mistakes. He is the one who brought you to this place at this exact moment, because he knew you needed to hear this. It is an honor for me to share this time with you, to accompany you on your spiritual journey. But most importantly, God is with you, and he will never leave you alone. Always remember this. Even if people envy you, even if they try to dim your light, nothing and no one can stop the plan God has for you. He will lift you up, strengthen you, and use you for his glory. Keep going, keep trusting, because the Lord never fails. Declare now with faith, I am a warrior of God, and my victory is assured. Write it in the comments, and let this truth be recorded in your heart. Don't forget that every word you receive here is a seed that will bear fruit in due time. Stay firm, keep seeking God, because he has plans for your welfare and not for harm in your life. Look for that next message, because today the Lord has more for you. We are together in this spiritual battle, and I won't stop until you see God's hand at work in your life.